And then what I did was add a lace edge. Now, Dyed Light has posted lots and lots of files, lovely files in our gallery, and you'll see she's got, what, 95 edges now posted, 89 and 95. They're in sets, so you can get these sets all for free right from Make the Cut, and you just click on the download button, and there are lots of sets. So I got this from one of the earlier sets that she posted, and can't remember which one. Could be this one. Anyway, there are tons of them. If you ever wanted to get any edges, borders, just click on the download button and there you go. This is one of the edge designs that I used for creating the tag. So that'll be one that I'll show you. So lots and lots of really nice edges and designs. So this is the edge design that I used, and I'll show you how I used it for this project. So what I'll do is take all of these kind of over here and show you how I made this card. And this involves using some tools in the note editing toolbar, and you can access those by clicking on the figure 8 up in the upper left corner, and it opens the note editing toolbar. Now this card is going to be sized, I'm making it 12 inches wide and 5.5 inches tall, but it goes at an angle. So I could do it, just get a 12 by 5.5 inch box and adjust sidelines, but I thought I'd show you how I might draw it. First I'll turn on the snapping to maybe 1/4 of an inch and click on the Bezier draw tool, and I'll just start drawing at the upper left corner. Left click here and right click at the 12 inch, left click, because I'm going to continue the line, left click. I'm going to go all the way down to 5.5. The grid lines help me do this, and the snapping keeps it straight. So left click here. Now this other line is going to go to 2 3/4. So I'm going to left click here, and then I'm going to left click at the end, and it fills it in. So I'll go to the green mat while I'm working on this so you can see it. Next I want to add the score lines, and to add the score lines I'm going to put them on their own layer, because if I make them dashed lines, the dashed lines have a different line properties than the cutting lines, so I like to keep those separate. So the dashed lines are going to be on the at the 2 inch mark, so I'm going to left click and right click, and the 4 inch mark, left click, right click, and 10 inch, left and right, and the 8 inch, left and right. And then there are cut lines. Now the cut lines are going to go halfway through. This is angled, and the halfway mark kind of changes. So I'm going to add another layer to draw myself a practice line so I know where should the half mark be. And then I'll be deleting this line later. So I added a new layer, and the layer I'm working on is highlighted here, and you see there's nothing in it right now. So I've got to start halfway up over here and doing the math. Let's see, I'm going to look at my notes here, see if I have notes. Oh, no notes in this file. Well, it's not the 3-inch mark because half of 2 3/4 is about, it's going to be an 1/8, so I'm going to take the 1/8 inch here. It's going to be 1 and I think 7/8. Left click there, and you notice the little plus signs through here. These are the halfway marks of my score line. So if I just drag this right through those plus marks, I pretty much get the halfway mark, and it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to right click on this side. Now what I want to do is hide my score lines, and now I'm going to draw cut lines just on the 2-inch mark. I'm going to add another layer, and I'm going to left click at the top, and then I'm going to right click when I meet the line. And I'm going to make the center slash, starting with the bottom, left click and right click, and then I'm going to make one at the 10-inch mark from the top, left click and right click. So these are my cut lines that I'll be cutting. Once I have those, when I'm finished with that center line, then I'll get rid of it. But before I do, I want to duplicate everything because I'm going to have 2 pieces. So I've selected everything. I'm going to go to Edit, Copy, then Edit, Paste in Place, and I'm going to hold the Control key and use my down arrow key just to take my copy below. And that gives me, oops, I'm going to undo that because I didn't have my score line showing, and I do want to duplicate those. So let me just delete that and show my score lines. Here we go. And I'll select all those again. And I think I'll go ahead and change my score lines to dash lines. And now I'll just copy and edit, paste in place, and now I will use my down arrow to move everything down. And I've got to change my cut lines to the opposite edges. So I'm just going to hold the Shift key on the end to end marks. Maybe I'll just arrow down. Not going to be perfect. So that I have my score lines on the opposite side, and then this one I'll move up. Holding the Control key, I can arrow faster and fine-tune it by lifting the Control key and just tapping it. So now I have my score lines on the opposite sides, and I can get rid of this middle line. Click away from it, and I'm going to hide that so I can grab the line and delete it. Same with this up here. If you can't select the line that you want, you can just do as I did, is click on the layer that's on top, send it to the top, and then you can hide it. Sending it to top helps me find it. Okay, so I'm going to send these to the bottom. Right click, move layer to the bottom, right click, move layer to the bottom, so that I can see the score line. So I'll get rid of the empty layers here, and I'll hide these previously made files so you can see what we've got. Zoom out a little bit. Now I can change the colors of my pieces here. Let's say I want them to be yellow. Then I can go up here to the contrast mat to see. Now I have my pieces all ready to go. So this is the Cascade card. I assemble it by first putting these slots, the center slots, together, and then and folding these mountain and valley opposite, and then sliding the other pieces together. So I hope I did that right. Let's look at these. Yeah, it worked this way. Well, did it?
Julie?
Yes.
The only thing is you don't need the score lines at the 2-inch and the 10-inch because they're not folded.
Well, it's possible you might not need them. I put them in and I used them. But you're right. We don't need score lines at the middle either. And they, as I look at my card, they're not really folded there. You're right. So here's the card. They would go straight across.
It'll just make them weak at that fold line when you don't need it. So
you only need these fold lines right here, the center, these right here. So we could delete these. That's right. Thank you.
And Julie?
Yes.
Lee has a question. If Julie is making a 12-inch wide, won't it be an issue when cutting paper that is 12 by 12 inches?
When I went in to cut these, what I did was take my little tool here, my node editing tool, and I grabbed the top line because the edge of my paper was there and I deleted it. And the edge of my paper was here and I deleted this one. And I'm left clicking and delete. All the other lines I needed to keep there. So yes, that was true, that if it won't hurt anything except you'll end up cutting your mat if you're right on the edge of your paper. So I deleted those outside lines. The only time that is a problem is if you're exporting as SVG. I would wait till you get the export into the other software because the sizing of the lines might be affected if you have deleted those. So I left them in until I exported as SVG, and then I deleted them in the other software. So for my own saving the file, I left all the lines in so that I can delete them before I cut if need be. So good question. Any other questions?
No other questions. It's a good point to make that if you're going to make it and then make it extra smaller, to do it on the 12-inch, and then after it's completed to make it the set size smaller so you can use the snapping easier.
Yes, the snapping is the snapping to 1/4 of an inch. The reason that I selected 1/4 of an inch, as you see over here, it's 2 3/4. I've found some designs online that used 3-inch. You could use 3-inch, or if you wanted the front to be smaller so you could see more of a slant, so you could see more of the designs, you could do it shorter. It would just, I think you could use any measurements that you want for the height. You could, if you wanted to use, make it even taller, you could. So I leave all my lines intact, and that way I can resize proportionally or not, however I wanted. So this was a really fun and easy card to make, and so I really encourage you to give it a try. It's just very simple. I'd love to see what you do with yours. Now to get to Di's question, for the webinar, she wanted to see if we could add some of these edges that she put in the gallery to a project. So what I did was I took her design, which was this edge right here, copied it, Control C, and then I brought it into this file and Control Shift V, pasted it in here, and then I rotated it. Now, this was a little taller than I wanted, but I saw some really cute Cascade cards with lace edges, and I thought this would be really pretty. So first I needed to resize this a little larger. If you want to know how long this line is, you can go to the ruler and click on that line, and you can see how long it is. Well, it's a little hard to see right now with it connected, but if I break that node or remove the ends as I did, I didn't want to delete the node, I want to right click and break the node. Then when I select it with the ruler, I can see exactly how long it is. Up at the top you see path length is 12.3111. So on my edge, I need this edge, and I'll resize it proportionally here with the gold lock icon on, and I'll make the width 12.3111 and enter. So now I have it long enough to put on my edge. The other thing is that I want it not standing up quite as tall, so I'm just going to drag this down as I did to be a little shorter. That gives me some room for overlapping and still having a nice little lacy edge. So once I got it sized, I used Control C to copy. Then I took it back over to my my edge here, and I'm just going to join these again. Right click and so left click, right click, they must be, got to click right on the node. If you can't join it that way, you can always select it and do a fusion weld to join it back up again. So I'm going to do a paste in place and flip it and then rotate it so that it's on the edge of my line here. And I'm going to get rid of the snapping. And just kind of eyeballing it, getting it at the same angle as that edge, and move it up. But you notice on the edges that I have an angle here and an angle here, and if I don't want that edge to be angled, then I can edit the design. I'm going to send it to its own layer by clicking on the smaller of the two green plus icons on the right side of the screen, and maybe zoom in a little bit. I'll type 5 and a 3 with this arrow selected, 5 and a 3, and go down to the end. This zoomed me in really close. I actually hit 6, I think. So you see this edge is not straight with this one here, and this was part of Di's question is, well, how do you customize these? So with a left click here, I can right click and delete the node, left click, right click and convert to line to make it straight, then left click on the corner here and just drag it to go with that dotted line that I see to make it line up with this piece here. I'll do the same thing on the left side. Go over all the way to the left and scroll up. And I don't really have, now that I'm zoomed in here, I don't really have this very straight with the edge. But what I'm going to do the same thing, I'm going to edit and make this all one line. So I'm going to delete this middle node. I'm going to right click on the node and delete the node, then left click on the line that has bent, and I'm going to right click and convert to line. That makes it nice and straight. So then I can click that endpoint and drag it right down even with that dotted line. And if that's not lined up perfectly, I can line it up there, and then I can, I'll zoom out a little bit and make sure that I've got a good angle there. If I go to the green mat again, I can see how the pieces are overlapped. And if I need to rotate a little more to make them fit, see on this end the angle is a little narrower than it was on the other side. So if I use my selection arrow and click, I get that rotation handle. A little bit of adjustment to get it to be about the same. But then I want to make sure the edge is nice and straight too. So I can click on that node editing tool, left click, and just drag that endpoint over. I want it to move. So now that I have my edge the way I want, I can select it and Control Shift and click and do a mirror image. Then I can take this down. I'm going to flip it. And then line it up with the edge of this piece. I'll type 4 and 3 just to make sure that I've got a good alignment. Get it lined up with the edge and overlapping slightly so that when I weld it, it will weld. And zoom back out. When I weld, I mostly want to select just the outside shapes and not the inside shapes. So I select both and weld, and then select both of these and weld. Then I can change the colors back, and I can see the colors better here. So now I notice that I have the design overlapping here and this one hanging off the edge, which I don't want. So I'm going to go ahead and select all the bottom shapes here, and I'm just going to flip it so that I can bring everything up here and move my score lines and such up. And I think we decided we don't need that score line there. So we have a design that's nice and ready to cut, and it's got an edge on it. So do we have any questions about editing an edge to add to another project?
Lee has a question. Should the tiny holes between each eyelet be deleted? Seems like too much stress for the paper.
It is a lot of detail, and it's very tiny detail. It depends on your cutter. I cut these on my view. I did not have a problem with that tiny detail weakening anything. Cut beautifully, but I also used some good crispy paper, and now when I did the back design was very tiny, and I did this on Whirlwind Double Mates. I can show you how I turned that border into this design, and it's still, I cut it on my view, all that tiny detail cut really well. So you can cut it small. Now, Di was saying she thought maybe a lot of this detail might be too small to cut effectively, and she wanted to know, could we maybe use it with pens? So that's what I did here, is I added some text from Lettering Delights. This is LD Acorn, and I used my dark pen on this text, and then I used the other pen I used another one of her edges, and I curved it using a circle, which I can show you if you would like. And then I didn't get a very good picture. This picture was pretty bad. But I used the orange for the border pen, and I used, these are medium tip pens. What are they? Crazy Art Classic markers from Walmart, I think. And so I was able to draw the text in the middle and draw the border. So if you think the inner detail is too much for your cutter, but you still like the design in it, you don't want to delete it, then you could separate those design elements to use with pens. And to do that, I would take this and break it using the Control B or the break icon at the bottom. Then I would take all that detail, send it to its own layer, and I would group it, and then I would use that as pen drawing, and that way you could still get the detail if it was too tiny for your cutter, and you could designate that, double click on that layer, you could say pen, and then these would be score lines, I think. Let's see, if you want to know what a layer is, you can click on its thumbnail. So these are cut lines, and so you can draw them, or you can actually cut them. So when I was doing the tag here, I'll zoom in a little, I used her detail here from this edge. This is the edge that she had in one of these borders. I'll show you the border. And we'll go to green screen. This piece of the design was up here. So what I did was, same thing I just showed you, I used the break tool to break this apart. Just come down here and break so that everything was broken. Then I grabbed this piece of the design, used my control and arrow to move it down, and then I joined it so that now I have just this piece of the design, and my goal was to make kind of a tag for the front of this project and to make it a little rounder. So I got a oval type shape as I selected that inner detail that I wanted, and this is kind of like a stencil. Then I hold the control key and drag this over a circle. Could be a circle of any size of your choice. And I use the warp on this. You can change where the position is. And you could use it just like that, or you could also use stretch. Well, I don't want to stretch it that much. I could, I think I just used the warp. Then you could change the vertical alignment to make it smaller or larger. And that kind of changes the angle of the curve as well. And if you use a bigger circle, it curves less. So you can determine that. If I'm happy with this, I would click on Accept. Now I've got a curve design that I can duplicate, Control Shift and click, and then flip it, and then bring it down like this. Might need to rotate this a little to get it level. And try that again. Then to make the tag, you can overlap the lines. I think I overlapped them a little bit. You could really do whatever you want to do in terms of design. I type a V to align them and then just welded them together. So this inner detail welded. And then I created an outline. And to do the outline, I just selected that first and click on the shadow, which is the fourth icon from the right. And I think I like to use a 0.08 to get a real close outline. You can see it in the preview here. And then if you want an extra outline, you can, I made this one just a little bigger. I selected it and did outline again, and this time I did a 0.1 inch and accept. So now I can change the colors of these. This one, I can send it up, and maybe I made it a darker brown. And then this one, I sent it up and made it kind of gold. And the original, move it up a few layers so we can see it. Right click, move to the top so you can see it here. And in order to make it look the way it's going to look, I can click it and click that layer that it's on and join. And now you can see that it's more like a stencil. There are some little tiny design elements in here that I would want to get rid of because they'll just fall out. Any inside detail would fall out in here. So to do that, I would type 4 and 3, then come in here and I just break the whole thing and delete these inside pieces because they're not needed anyway. And I think those were the only two that were overlapping. This one wasn't quite overlapping, so you can use an eraser to erase some of those. I'll use an inverse eraser for this because it's on a background. So you can fix up some of those little pieces if you want. That's all part of the editing process. So once you have those inside pieces, then the rest of these are like stencil pieces that you can select all and join them, and you can see what they're going to look like once they're cut. So I'll join this together, and I think that was the bigger piece. I want to join those to the smaller piece. Yes. So in order to stack these, I select all the pieces, join them, then I'll select both of these and type S to stack, and now that they're stacked, I will select them and join. And I can recolor them. So the top one's going to be gold and the bottom one's going to be brown. And I can come down here to the contrast so we can see the color. And so then you can get a really nice effect. And so this is what Di was talking about, is taking her designs that she's posted so many lovely things to the gallery. These can be used to create some really nice effects for your projects. To create this oval on the back, I use the same wrap function but a little bit differently, and I'm just about done with this. Hope I'm not boring you. To get the wrap, I'll come back to this tag page here. I thought it would be nice to have the same artistic motif as the lace edge and use it on the back. So I copied that, Control-C, and measured the back of my card, which was 4 inches wide. Use the green lock icon here, or unlock. And I made the width 4 to match the card, and 5 for the height, and enter, so that I got an oval. Then I took this, Control-Shift-V, this edge here, and holding down the control, I drag it over the oval. And this time I'm going to use a stretch, and I'll cancel this so that I can take us down a little bit so you can see it. Again, you hold a control, drag over the other shape till the cursor changes to the triangle, circle, and square, then let go of the mouse and the control key, and it wraps around. Then you can adjust the wrap to start wherever you want. And then you see down here they don't quite overlap, or they don't overlap enough. You can change this extend to change where they connect. So you can use your arrow keys to adjust just a little bit at a time until this shape comes close to this shape. And then you can accept, or you could do a repeat. And if you do a repeat, which is what I did, I got this very close design. What this did is it made the pieces twice as small, gave me twice as many of this lacy effect. And then you can click on accept. If you want to weld the paths, you can, and it'll weld them for you. So you automatically can create a frame out of any one of those 80 or 90 or 100 different lacy edges that are posted in the gallery. You can convert any of them into a lovely frame just like this. If you want the center to be included in the frame, you can stack them, type S, they'll be stacked, and then you can weld it. Before I weld, I'll hold Control Shift and drag away. And now I'm gonna weld this together. And we can go to the green screen so you can see the detail there. So then you have two different designs. You have a mat, then you have a frame, and you have a backing. So I cut these for my design. I cut the frame, and then I made a little bigger center for a contrast here. So there's so many different things you can do with those lace edges. And so I'd like to make a homework assignment, and that is make a Cascade card and decorated it. I decorated mine with pieces that I got from different SVG cuts projects. So here's kind of a front view of my finished card. I wanted it to be a fall design. This is a top view so you can see all the different pieces of the design. There's a turkey and an owl and pumpkins and leaves and corn stalks and a tree, and can't see everything from either of these angles. I should have taken a side view, but I really like it. It turned out well, and so I want to see what projects you make with this Cascade card. Put some kind of edging on it, play with it. It'll give you some practice with editing, and it's fun. And our gallery is full of all kinds of design elements that you can add to your Cascade card. It'll make a very special gift for somebody. So any questions now?
Yes. Leslie said that when you were demonstrating to delete parts that don't cut, you could also shadow certain parts to make them bigger.
That's true.
And Sue says, wow, that's neat. Wouldn't have thought of using the warp like that.
It's something we discovered right after Andy gave us this stretch and warp, and I found out that any border that I have, I could make into a frame. And it doesn't have to be a circle or an oval, but it does help to have rounded corners at least. And the design possibilities are endless. I was playing with these to create some additional frames, square frames. So you can take that edge and you can make a square, or you can make a rectangle. You can cut off little pieces to make corners. I played with this for a whole day. It was so much fun playing with these. So the nice thing is that you don't use your original. You make a copy and you play with it. If you don't like it, you can just change it back, go back to what you started with and play some more. So I'd love to see what you all come up with.
And the other thing, when you said you can draw the design on the Cascade card, be careful. I've been there, done that, bearing in mind you're using two sides of the card when it's put together.
That is absolutely correct. And I made plenty of mistakes. You should see my pile of prototypes here, that if you draw on one side, you're going to have to draw on the other, and then they won't line up right, and it will be a real headache. I just had to play with it for a while when I was trying to do double-sided anything, because on this completed card, you'll see this is the back side of the card, and this is the front side of the card. They alternate, front, back, front, back. So if you drew on one side, half of the design would be showing and half wouldn't. I think it's much more effective cut out. And if you're having problems, I'd say try some nice crispy paper. I use Whirlwind Double Mates and Color Mates for these. They just cut beautifully with no problem at all on these. And so heavier paper for me works better when cutting these tiny details. But I cut some tiny detail out of some lighter weight. It was double-sided, and it worked fine too. But this, you're cutting this tiny, tiny detail is like this one. This is tiny, tiny. I used Double Mates on this, and I had to sit for a while with my poker tool to poke out the little pieces here, but they all cut. They cut cleanly, and so I would recommend you try it.